We are diving right into my first SPFBO read together. I'm kind of scared. I'm very intimidated by this year's batch. We got some Dr. Pepper to keep me feeling good because it's my favorite pop. What's yours? I think that this year the selection just got kind of chunky. Typically, well, I've only done this 2 years in a row. I have the biggest book, and this year I'm in the middle, and I still picked a chunky book. My book is not small, but I am the middle page count length, which means everyone liked the chunky books this year, which makes me happy because I typically like chunky books, but also scary because I try to read them all in 1 month. Even though the page count of what I have to read is incredibly large, I have decided to start with the shortest book. I think it's because it's the one that I'm the most scared of. It's the one that I think has the least chance of me liking. However, I'm willing to be surprised. It is The Tenacious Tale of Tana the Tender Sword, which is a middle grade story. I have liked middle grade in the past. I actually love Amari and the Night Brothers, so it's not that I can't. I just find that I like darker stories than middle grade is. I probably could tell you that I'm allergic to cozy. I don't like wholesome stories, and middle grade tends to be a lot more wholesome. I'm definitely more about the dark, the gritty, all of that. So I'm kind of nervous. I think that's why Amari worked for me, is because Amari still had really deep themes, and so I'm hoping that this book still does that. Also, this will work for the Our Fantasy Bingo board if you need one that hits hard mode still for like the repeated titles, because it only asks for 3, and we have The Tenacious Tale of Tana the Tender Sword, so it has 6. I already got it because the lizard skin and sharpened steel also hit that one, but this will also hit it if anyone is still needing that square, because that hard mode is very hard for me until SPFBO. Anyways, let's dive right into this book. I'm nervous. I should be done it quite quickly. I'm hoping to finish it today. Okay, I've made it 50% into this book. Not gonna lie, it's not for me. I am definitely forcing myself to read this. I can't get behind the characters. I think because our main character doesn't like the people he's on this journey with. I also can't like them. Like, I find Tana annoying because he finds Tana annoying. And I think that there is going to be like a journey of like self-discovery and like friendship discovery throughout this, but at 50%, I don't feel that way. And I don't even like our main character. He's grumpy. They're both like selfish, and for middle grade main characters, I want there to be acts of heroism, confidence, bravery, kindness. I want a story to be teaching our next generation how they should act, and that also is something I really hated. Is there's a scene where Tana, who's our hero of the story, is calling a bunch of people stupid and saying that she's going to outsmart them and use their stupid brains against them. And just for me, a middle grade story is always a teaching moment, and without having that teaching experience there to be like, maybe she shouldn't say that, or maybe someone should tell her that they're not stupid. Like, I've seen it happen in stories where someone says someone's stupid and then they prove like they're not stupid, and like they're like proven wrong. But I just feel like that should not happen in middle grade stories. It's like my personal preference. I just think that it's the wrong message to be sending. So there's that. I just feel like this doesn't have a lot of depth to it in general. It is a story about a journey. Essentially, Tana the Tender Sword is the next like brave warrior person of the realm, and we're following her and her chronicler, who is our voice that we're inside of, as they go on their first quest to become one of these great people. They come from a school, and it's like their time. Like, you have to pass quest 1 to then continue on in this school. And Tana is set on like the best quest ever, and she doesn't listen to any of the rules. She doesn't read the like compendium of like how they should act. And then our chronicler is like a stickler for the rules. Like, they're definitely opposites. But what happens in this story a lot of the time is they go from one place, they go on a quest, a little journey to one place, and then they learn, oh, actually you have to go to the next place to really know what's gonna happen. So the plot is about the journey and what happens along the way, but it just feels like little moments that don't add up to a bigger plot for me. I just am bored. I don't like journey stories. That's something I've always said, and I feel like this is not a well done journey story, because at least sometimes each little moment feels like a teaching thing, specifically in middle grade. Like, I've read the Polar Bears Explorers Club, and I really liked that, and it's similar, but each little element that stopped them on their journey to like save what they have to save, to do what they have to do, felt like a moment that added definition to our characters, taught them something, and it was silly and goofy at the same time, but like it was a message that was being taught of like bravery and friendship. And I feel like that's what this is missing. I would really like those friendship vibes, because I feel like that's a big thing in middle grade that I have read and I have liked, and just like heavier themes. This is just like a silly, goofy, good time, and I'm not the reader for that. Definitely definitely. I'm gonna finish it and then I'm gonna update you. I'm sad that I'm not loving this. I feel like the writing is just tell, not show, and like middle grade is simpler writing for sure, but good middle grade can still show. It doesn't just go like, he walked here, he felt this way. Like that's what children's books do. Middle grade is still supposed to have like emotions to it. Didn't work for me so far. Last 50% to change my mind. Everyone ignore the stain on my shirt. I am a messy eater. I finished this book. Not surprisingly, I didn't like it. Not only do I think that this book just wasn't for me, I also just think I've seen something similar to this done way better. I never got behind the characters. The characters were always lacking. I wanted to care about them, and I think, very specifically, the thing that I think this book is missing, that I think you can say all YA, all middle grade, all adult needs, is emotional impact and like feeling, and I just felt literally nothing for this book. The characters did not make me care about them. They were just, it was a silly, goofy, good time. There was a little bit of character dynamic in the end. Like, we did have a really good moment for me of when Tana says she's scared and the Chronicle is like, you're never scared, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I'm just brave. And I do think that was like a cute moment there. I just think mostly though, the characters were one-dimensional. Tana was always brave. The Chronicle was always a rule follower. There wasn't just a lot of growth and dynamic in the characters themselves, which then affected also the overall like plotline in the story. I feel like I just wanted more of a message to be said in the plot. I feel like the plot was very much just like this to this to this to this, and didn't again have like a lot of depth and dynamic to it. I do think some middle grade readers could really enjoy this for the silly, goofy, fun time that it was, but I think that there needed to be more than just a silly, goofy, good time, which could be my own personal opinion clouding that judgment. The writing I didn't mind, but at times it felt clunky to me. I had to reread passages quite often just because they didn't flow properly in my brain, and I feel like that's something that I can really harp on in a middle grade story, because essentially this is supposed to be read to kids, like specifically the age demographic that I think it is. I think it would be a read aloud story. I think older kids would be picking up a little bit of an older story than this one reads, so I definitely could picture someone reading this out loud to their kid at bedtime, and it just didn't flow nice enough to be read out loud. Even my brain, it was like a little kid reading this. If my brain doesn't understand it, how is theirs going to? Because it just was clunky in the writing style at times. And world building, it was okay, I guess. It was what it was. It was very surface level in my opinion. It didn't dive too deep into what things were or why they were that way, which I think is part of the magic sometimes for middle grade stories. But I do think, I don't know, I've read some good ones that the world building still feels complex and developed, even being for children. I mean, Fablehaven, I love those stories. And that is so complex to me. Even Warrior Cats as a kid, like that was something I was reading quite heavily, and even though it was basic, it was well done and there was a lot of depth to the world, and I think that's what this was missing for me. I wanted to feel like the whole world existed, but it just felt like a little piece, a little corner of something that was different than anything else, if that makes sense. I guess we should go over my actual ratings for this so that we see the SPFBO official score. So for characters, I gave it a 5. For plot, I gave it a 6. For writing, I gave it a 6. As I said, I just felt like it was really clunky. For setting, I did give it a 7. And for enjoyment, I gave it a 2. I did not enjoy this, which is personal preference, personal opinion. This type of story is not for me, and I just think I've seen it done better, even in the element of what it is, which does give it a 4.67, which is a 4.5 for SPFBO. This feels harsh, but also when I looked at all individual ratings, I couldn't change any of them. It felt very true to how I felt about them and the restrictions I had, or like the complaints I had in every section. I just like had some major complaints with this one that really didn't work. On to the next book, which I have no idea what that is, but I'm hoping that I enjoy it a lot more. Hi, I am currently 10 chapters into The Wolf of Withervale. I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this one. Well, I wasn't liking it, and I think I'm starting to find my footing in it, and so that's good. First off, the vulgar language in this is not necessary. I feel like there are just so many swears. There's something about his butt cheeks just being splayed up in the air while he's sunbathing, and that just like wasn't necessary and really takes me out of the story. And it happens like a couple times where like I'm just like, you're being vulgar to be vulgar. And yes, I think it's an 18-year-old boy who is the main character, and you could say that that is in some ways something a man would do and very fitting to that like age group. but also I don't want to read about it, and that's personal preference, but that's what reading comes down to, especially in your internal monologue. It's different if it's speech coming out for me, like if you're talking and it's vulgar, fine, but if like the narrator of the story, like your internal monologue is saying those things, it's just kind of weird. I don't know, I didn't like that. But to the actual story, at first, in the first 10 chapters, I just felt a little bit lost. It took me a lot of time to find my footing in this one. I just felt overwhelmed, I think, by world building and not a lot of plot. I still don't know where the plot is going. I have no clue, but at least I feel like I found my footing in exactly what is going on currently. I just think at the beginning, a lot of stuff was given to me, a lot of world building, a lot of even character information, I guess, that like I couldn't sink into it. It was so much that I just ended up not remembering most of it. I think it's really hard to do world building sometimes because there has to be a balance. You have to have enough for it to feel lush, but not too much where like I'm gonna forget everything you said because you've given me too much information and I'm on information overload. And I sadly think that this went into information overload. And there's just a lot of stuff that I personally don't care about. I want the world building to be rich, but only things that matter at the same time. I don't need you to talk about things that aren't going to come up later or feel really repetitive. There's a scene about a bird and we hear exactly what the bird does twice. And I really, really liked the scene about the bird. But we just repeated a lot about like why the bird was doing that and why the other birds were doing that, even though 2 chapters prior I'd already heard all of that. So I just think maybe a little bit of editing down could have helped with some of that world building, especially at the beginning. I think the beginning of your story, yes, like obviously rich world building in a story is really good, but I think the beginning of your story should be character and plot, and that's what really, really matters. And world building can be built as you go, but I feel like I really lost the characters and the plot in the world building in this first 10 chapters. I'm only 10 chapters in, and I finally feel like I'm kind of starting to understand more and like my 2 characters. So hopefully it just goes up from here as I continue, because this is a long book. I think it's like 700 pages, so like I'm not far in, but I will update you with more of my thoughts in a bit. Okay, I'm in the middle of chapter 25, and finally, at 27% into this book, the plot has started. The first 25% of this book is nothing. Like, I don't really understand why it was needed. I get the concept. It was about character and like setting things up like really deeply, setting the world up. It was too much information and it was too slow. It needed for me to be faster paced. I typically do like a quicker plotted fantasy book, and I'm not so much into just like sitting with my characters. So I've been struggling with this one. I kept waiting. Like I kept thinking, okay, this is the chapter we're gonna get plot. Okay, this is the chapter we're gonna get plot. Honestly, at this point I had given up, and as soon as I had given up, we did finally. I feel like we're at a point where like, okay, I understand what the conflict of this story is going to be, and the journey is about to begin. But I don't think it should take a quarter of your book to set that up completely. Like the setup can be slow, but it needs to happen. I need something to keep me interested. I don't just want to watch a character go to work and a character sleep with people. Here's my other thing is that I hate the sex in this. I hate it. I hate it. I read romantasy, okay? And I like romantasy. And I can like and appreciate a smutty scene, but I complain about a romantasy and I'll complain about it here. Your sex needs to have a meaning. It needs to be character development. It needs to understand like a peak character relationship. There needs to be a reason for it. And if there is no reason, don't put it in there. And don't just put like crude language about it. Like the sex scenes made me so uncomfy because they were just so crude, but they weren't really meant to be crude, I don't think. And they were just so like straight to the point. They just weren't it for me. And I think it goes back to me talking about like the weird behavior at the beginning. I also said that earlier he was an 18-year-old boy. He was not an 18-year-old boy at those parts. He was younger than that. We have now fast forwarded in time and he is 18. But when I was originally complaining about like the language in this, yeah, now I'm complaining even more because it just felt really out of place. I still think it feels out of place. It's a writing style that I personally don't enjoy, and it's something that is bothering me. So yeah, I think my main issues with this so far are the pacing and the writing like itself. I'm hoping that the plot gets good. I'm hoping that I get invested in the characters. I'm not currently, but it often is hard to get invested into characters when you don't really enjoy the writing, and I think that that's a hard thing. So I'm going to try and put my like judging brain on a little bit, but hopefully I will get a good indent. I need to do some cleaning today, so I'm gonna do all that and hopefully update you in a bit. About 2.5 hours left of listening time for the audiobook. This book has grown on me, I will say that. I don't love it, but I definitely didn't like it at the beginning, and I like it now. know. I settled into the story arc as we got plot, and like I'm intrigued by the magic and what all that means and like the mask and stuff. Personally, this would have worked a lot better for me if it was more following select characters. My personal preference is I like to follow a character or a set of characters and alternate chapters for them. I don't really like when we just like jump around, and I feel like kind of jumping around in this and having more of an idea of what's happening than the characters is kind of harmful to my enjoyment of it. So I kind of wish we had just followed the one character. Like I literally only needed to follow the main guy. That's all I needed personally. And like I am enjoying figuring some stuff out, but I'm also not connected enough to the story. It feels like a 3-star read for me. The characters are kind of running together in my head, so really the only character that stands out to me is the main character that we're with. The other side characters I don't really know, and like the characters we meet a lot of characters on the journey. None of them have really stuck in my head, to the point that sometimes I'm like, who are you again? And things like that. Like I am definitely struggling with the characters and the pacing. Like I just struggle with the pacing, and for me that's a journey story thing. I always feel like the pacing in a journey story where they're traveling a lot is so slow, and I don't like it. I want more action. I want things like that. We've spent a decent amount of time like in one place and then like doing day-to-day things almost about them, and then like quick travel to another place to do like day-to-day things. Like I just need the story to progress a little bit more. I feel like we're doing a lot of world building, and I like the world building, and I guess that is what my favorite part of the story is, but I see potential in other aspects if we like grew them a little bit more. I still don't like the sex either. There's a lot of things about eggplants in this book, and I just don't understand for what purpose. Like I need the sex to have meaning and connection, and like there's a scene with like he just goes and has a quickie really, and like I don't understand why we heard it. Like just fade to black. Like fade to black for me, you know? Personal preference. But yeah, I did want to say that like I am enjoying this more than I was, but I'm not loving it either, and I just think it has potential though. So there is that. The magic is cool. The mask itself is cool. I don't know if I ever said what this is about. We're following our main character who finds a mask as a kid and puts it on, and it causes extreme pain, and then never puts it on again until he's older, and some people come to town and they're gonna kill him and his best friend trying to find the mask. Another stranger also comes to town, and they trust that stranger for some odd known reason, and they go on a journey to protect the mask and figure out what it means and to keep the mask out of enemy hands because the mask is magical. That's my quick setup of the story. I have mixed feelings on this one. It's kind of hard to talk about. I think I've talked about a lot of it. My main issues were the characters. I really didn't like get attached to the characters the way I personally want to. I felt like they ran together. Honestly, sometimes I was like, I don't even know how many characters are on this journey with them until names were said. Like, was there 3? Was there 4? I don't know, and it just like ran together in my head. They weren't distinct enough. I feel like after the first part, once we left like the city, the side characters lacked scenes, and it was really just about our main character and then his romance that is eventually added in. The romance, honestly, didn't like. The main thing is that the guy's a bear shifter, and he's older than our main character, so he calls the main character Cub, and that just made me uncomfortable. I don't like how prominent they made that age gap feel. I've read vampire romance, I've read age gap romance, so I can like it, but you reminding me every page that the one guy is a lot older than the other guy just didn't work for me. The plot pacing was off for me. It felt so long. I don't understand why this book was so long, why nothing happened in it. Like, I really needed the plot to like get a move on. Honestly, this is probably gonna make a lot of people want to read it. It's not for me. It kind of reminds me of Wheel of Time, where it's so character driven, but I needed the characters to have more of a goal or like momentum to their like ideas or what they were gonna go do to be able to like grab onto them. I needed them to have like something I could root for them doing, and I feel like I lost that, and this was more about like the character scenes and interactions than like what the character was meant to do within this story. It was definitely like more introspective about our character finding himself, and that's why there is a lot of romance in this book. There is a lot of smut in this book. I personally didn't like it. I didn't think that it had emotional impact, which is how I like my smut to be, but I did like this queer character finding himself. I did think that was well done, just not like personally to my taste of like a very emotional story where like the romance really makes sense. Like, you know, this could be the romancy reader in me coming out, where like I kind of wanted, if we were gonna have such a big moment in romance, I wanted it to take up more of a really deep development of the two characters that I feel like we didn't get here, if that makes sense. And then the writing was just not my particular taste. Not necessarily things wrong with it. I just didn't like it, and very personal reasons for me, I guess. I talked about wanting it to be more like our main character's POV and that's it. Like jumping around and knowing more didn't work for me. The like crude writing and some of that didn't work for me. But the world building, amazing. Just felt overwhelmed by it. There was too much of it, specifically at the start. I got lost, and I feel like I don't remember all of the world building, but it did feel like very rich. So I think that that's its strongest part. Let's get into my official ratings for an official score for SPFBO. I give characters a 6, plot a 6, writing a 7, setting got a 9 for me, 1 point docked just for being like overwhelmed by it, but it was really good. And then my enjoyment was a 6, which puts the score at a 6.67, which is a 6.5 for the story overall. I liked this one enough, but I didn't love it, and I want to love one. Like, I'm waiting for the SPFBO book that I'm screaming about. Hopefully that's whatever I read next. I had to change because I got soy sauce all over my sweater when I was having sushi, but I started my next SPFBO book. I started By a Silver Thread. This one caught my attention right away. From like the very first chapter, I was very much intrigued. I thought the lines about monsters were really cool, and how the end of that prologue or introduction like lipped that. And I feel like it really did set the scene. And then we got into chapter 1, and I was really enjoying the world building and the magic. I do think that there is a little bit of a interesting mix up between what happens in the introduction and chapter 1. I do feel like there's a bit of a jump that feels a little too drastic. However, I still enjoyed it. I just was expecting a lot more like monster vibes in this from the prologue. Essentially, so far in this, I'm not super far in. I'm on chapter 5. So I have 3 hours and 46 minutes left of listening time. And we're following our main character, who is a changeling. And she was obviously brought into the human world at some point. But there is a silver thread that connects her to her human sister. And if she dies, her human sister counterpart will also die. And so someone offers her a way to like work for him and help contain her like magic, essentially. And so time passes, and we see her work for this guy, and then this guy goes missing suspiciously, and her and some of the other people that work for him are worried what will happen when he goes missing, and if he's gone for too long, what will happen to them, because he helps contain their magic with like these magical pills, and no one else knows how to make them. I really, really like some of the lore in this. If you witness the magic, if you don't believe it, then it hurts them. And I thought that that was really interesting, and kind of reminds me of like Tinkerbell vibes, where we had to like believe in the magic, you know, we had to like clap for Tinkerbell, like those kind of things. And I like how the magic can be used, and like she uses it to create like a car, but it's not a real car, and if people inspect the car, they could maybe see that it's not real, and then that will like kind of hurt her. And I thought that was just like really unique and really interesting. This is like part of a whole world, so I am interested to see if I ever feel lost because of that, because I often do find that when authors say it's a standalone but can be read, sometimes it can be and sometimes it can't be. So like, although this is a separate series, but it's in like one world, so I'm curious to know if I'll ever feel confused. So far I'm not. There was like some stuff that I had to like innately just like know, but I feel like it was like common sense stuff, and I wouldn't have expected that to be like overly explained, even if it was book 1 of like a world. I'm intrigued by the plot. This is my preferred type of pacing, where like really early on we have something that like gravitates us through. Like we know we're trying to find what happened to this guy that's gone missing, and so we have a really easy plot thread. I'm hoping for more characters to like stick around. Right now she seems to be jumping around a little bit. I really would like to focus on like a set group of characters. That's or something that I personally enjoy. It makes me really get invested in those characters, and like when we just like meet someone, talk to them, meet someone, talk to them, it just like loses its appeal to me eventually. So I'm really hoping that we get some characters that stick around, and it's not just her by herself. But also there's something I'm really excited about like lore. Sometimes what they say, when humans believe in something so much, they create that thing. And so there's this one guy on like a black motorcycle that's like a legend that was created by the humans, and they kind of exist somewhat separately, and I'm very intrigued by what's happening there. There's a lot that's exciting me about this, which is good. I'm very, very happy with this read so far. Also, look, I have a little Grinch on the Nike symbol. How cute! I've made it about halfway through this one. I have mixed feelings. I do like the plot. I am intrigued. It's been a really easy listen. It's the same day, and I'm still just like grinding through the audiobook. However, I'm lacking like connection to the story. I want to care about the characters, and I do not care about a single character in this story. It's fast paced. I like the way the action is going. I like the world building, but the characters just lack any like connection. It just feels like I'm going through time, and like our main character keeps talking about her sister, which is like what the silver thread is attached to, but also like, why am I supposed to care about the sister that you've never met? You don't even know her name. Like, why are you going to care about her? Like, you have no connection to her. Have you heard stories about her? Like, I need something to like grasp that emotional impact. I do like the writer guy that we've gotten. He's probably my favorite character. He doesn't speak. But other than that, like, I don't know, I'm just like, I'm missing a cast of characters to like root for and to like be intrigued by as they go on this mystery. And in some ways, maybe it's just a little too fast paced, but I also like the fast paced nature of it. So I'm not sure. I am gonna probably stop reading this because I need to watch Taylor Swift's Last Eras tour and see if anything exciting happens. I really think something exciting is gonna happen tonight. I am clowning. But either way, like, it's nice to just watch like the last of the tour. I'm sad it's over. I've watched a lot of grainy live streams and I'm sad that I can't just like turn them on every night anymore. But I will continue this and hopefully finish this tomorrow. We put up our Christmas tree yesterday. It looks so pretty. Honestly, I'm kind of the Grinch and I don't typically need to put up a Christmas tree, but my mom is really into Christmas. And this year I kind of am more into Christmas than I think I am in other years. I feel like I go back and forth. Like some years I like really like Christmas and sometimes I just feel like it's too much work. Well, most years I still feel like it's just too much work. I'm really close to being done this book. I have about an hour left and so I just want to do a really quick update. I am still enjoying it, but I think not as much. And my major complaint for this one is going to be that it feels like everything is happening to our main character. Like the plot, the story, it's all happening to our main character. She's not like a part of it. Like in this later half, it's really become apparent that anything she does doesn't really matter. Like take her out of the story and I feel like we still have the same things happening because other characters are pulling the strings. She's just kind of our view on it. And I mean, she does matter to the story because it is like about her, but it's just like things happening to her. Like she's the least interesting to follow because she doesn't actually get to do anything. She's just kind of existing. And I just want more character development. I want to care about the characters. Something just happened with another character and I was like, think I'm supposed to like really care about that. But I had like one other scene with you at like the first 30% of the book. So like you might matter to our character, but it wasn't shown to me that you matter to me because we didn't get enough of an attachment to that character, if that makes sense. I think the characters in this one are truly lacking for me. The plot is fun. It's moving. I like the plot. I still am enjoying the plot. But yeah, I just want it to exist a little bit more with our main character. I don't know how to explain that other than like just things are moving around her, not with her. That's really my quick update here. I'll update you again when I'm done with my final scoring. Okay, I finished our story last night. I liked this one. I didn't love it. I feel like that is a trend here. It's not a story I would have picked up by myself, that's for sure, but I did enjoy aspects of it. I really thought the world building was cool with like this whole city that humans have been re-given magic by, I think it's a meteor that crashes down and it brings magic back to humankind. But really my biggest complaint with this was the characters. I didn't love the way the plot went in the end either. I think it really is only that like mystery plot line for 30% of the book and then we know something about what happened and it kind of ruins the mystery aspect of it, which was what like I was really into. I definitely preferred the first half of this than the latter half and I just wanted to care a lot more about the characters than I did. I really seemed to struggle with the characters in this one. I thought they had potential but like I just needed to see more. I think I wanted personality. I think this is something I struggle with in a book. I kind of contradict myself a little bit. I don't like a lot of slow moments with characters, so I complain about that in really slow books, but sometimes in fast-paced books, I'm really missing those slow moments. I think it's a balance that I need. And I feel like in this one, the personality of these characters really revolved around the plot. We didn't get to see their personalities outside of what they were doing shine, and I really needed some of those moments. I would have liked some more moments, but also the moments that did happen I didn't really like because there's a smut scene in this that I didn't enjoy. I was just like, I don't really feel the chemistry between these two, which it's just the lack of personality in the characters for me as a whole I just didn't love. But I liked the pacing a little bit. Like it could have slowed down a little bit at times. I think this book could have been longer, but overall I did enjoy the pacing, I guess. But I don't know. I'm struggling with my feelings. I'm struggling how to put it into words how I felt. It feels like a 3-star. I liked it. I don't regret my time reading it. I enjoyed the magic system and all of that, but I definitely wouldn't pick up a sequel. And I think that says something about the story. For characters, I'm giving this a 6. For plot, I'm giving it a 7.5. For writing, I'm also giving it a 7.5. Writing's like a hard one because it's innately about what I enjoy. There was nothing wrong about this one, but like there was something missing working in it for me. Setting, I'm giving an 8, and enjoyment, I'm giving a 7, which puts the score to 7.17, which for SPFBO, that rounds down to a 7, which is a solid rating. It was a 3-star. Like, I liked this book, but I want to love the next one. But I have started the next one, so we can talk about that real quickly. I need a coffee break because I've been talking too much. Give me a second. But I started Mushroom Blues. It's really funny because I just put in the judges Discord that FBC has a type. They just replied to me that they're like, we didn't even realize it, but I was like, this, The Last Ranger, and Umbral Storm all have themes of like prejudice that has to be overcome in it. And I was like, these are your guys' finalist picks. Y'all have a type. And I'm laughing so hard. Obviously, some of those have worked for me. Like the Umbral Storm was one of my favorite books that I read for SPFBO. I'm still waiting for that sequel. Like, I loved that story. And The Last Ranger, I enjoyed but didn't love. It was one of those like 3-star vibes for me. And so I am excited for this one. However, I am 10% in. I did start it this morning. And I'm finding the one thing about this one that's kind of hard is who we follow. I think Umbral Storm really worked for me because it follows a younger protagonist who's learning. This one definitely follows an older woman. She's a police officer who has been set to this border town that is full of the fungi people, the mushroom people. Our main character is a colonizer, essentially, and she's the people of the colonizers. So she has a lot of innate racism within her to the fungi people, and in this town that they have taken over this land when the fungi people are just wanting their rights and freedoms and what they had before. The colonizers are like, meh, 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 meh. And so I find it really hard to be in the perspective of a colonizer. I'm finding it really hard because specifically with our main character in this first 10%, we've given her nothing but her racism. We've given her no personality outside of that. And I know the story arc is going to be watching her adapt and change, and I'm excited for that. I feel like that story itself can be such a in-depth story, and so like I'm interested in that arc. But at this moment in time, I'm like, I need a reason to care about this woman. Like right now I'm like, off with your head. I hate you. Like you're awful. So I need a reason to like want to watch her adapt and change, you know? Like I need something. So that's like my main struggle. But I am like intrigued. The idea of these mushroom people itself is just like intriguing, and they like have spores and they think that if they like breathe in the spores they'll become the mushroom people. Now I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels like it's not true, and it's just fear that has taken over and it's really awful. So like I do like the themes in this story, but I just like, I'm not sure the execution is gonna work for me. And I think I struggled with The Last Ranger for this reason as well, because it's the same thing. We're following someone with this big of prejudice, where in the Umbral Storm the prejudice was more around our main character and he had to learn to adapt through it and help see people change. But I feel like he didn't necessarily have the prejudice. It was more like people had the prejudice for him, if that makes sense, and like his friend, but he wasn't the person with this innate hatred that I had to like hear inside their voice constantly and be like, I don't like you, off with your head. Those are my current struggles, but hopefully I will just like sink into this one, and as we see more of our main character's personality come out, I will really like be happy with her. Hi, I've made it 50% into this book. I'm 56% in. The first half of this was honestly kind of exhausting for me to read. There's something exhausting being in this main character's head because she's just full of racist thoughts, and so being in her head and just hearing every racist thing, like it just made me want her to die. Like I was just like, you're a crappy person. I don't want to root for you at all. And it made me not want to read because I just like, I didn't enjoy the narrative perspective. It's a murder mystery and I do like that aspect of it. Essentially our main character is trying to figure out what is happening to the mushroom kids, and no one else on the police force is willing to do it because they're just the mushroom people. So like, who cares? But to her it's still a kid. So like there is an element of her like still caring, but not enough. And I just honestly found this book exhausting mentally. I read for enjoyment, and I think that this story arc can be done a little bit better. I just wish we had something about her to care about. The entire personality in the first 50% really felt like it revolved around her hate of these people, which I wish we had given her something, just like some little thing that could help me just like grasp on to like wanting to root for her. I am in the last like 6%, I feel like I've really gotten into the plot a little bit. I feel like it's dragged a little bit, and I think maybe that is just because of how much I didn't like being in this girl's head. For me, I think it's Koji is how you say it, would have been a much better main character. I find him very interesting. I think having this mushroom guy who the other mushroom people don't trust anymore because he is now working with the humans, but he's trying to do it to make it better for the mushroom people, but then the humans all hate him because he is a mushroom person, having him kind of an outsider on all of it. I wish we'd at least gotten his perspective. I wish that this was dual POV actually. I wish we got both of them, and I think that that would have really helped me be able to root for the other lead character, because I think like if we saw his moments of why he was still working with her, or like the good things he saw in her or things like that, because there are moments of her like being good. There is a moment recently that she stands up for him, and I was like, I needed something like this. I don't know. I've been struggling with the character in this. I've been struggling with the narrative style to choose her as our main character, which has made everything else a little bit flatter for me. But as we get more into the murder mystery and the pace seems to be picking up a little bit more, I am definitely intrigued. I think we spent way too long on this one location earlier, and I really liked the like fastness of the last, like, probably like I would say 15% has kind of gone by for me quite quickly. So I'm hoping as that continues, as we get more answers, I'll be more invested, because I'm definitely intrigued about what's happening to the lost children. I'm intrigued about some of the conspiracies and things like that, and I'm hoping these two get a better friendship. There's things like that that I wish I could really need to enjoy this book. That's really my update. It's a little depressing, but also hopeful, so that's good. I finished the book, and I think a lot of people will like this one. I understand the love of it. I went back and read through some of the other reviews I've seen for it, and I get why people like it. I do get that it is a really well done discussion, but I personally do read for enjoyment, and I think that that really does factor in. And I just am kind of petty, and if I hate a character, if I hate a person, it's really, really hard to then make me care about that person. And I hated the voice of this story. I hated the main character, so I didn't care. And there was so much stuff about her that I feel like she only existed to be her trauma and the mystery she had to solve and her racism, and I wanted to see like things about her. There's a car scene about our secondary character when he's like talking about music, and I feel like our secondary character had so much more life in him than our main character did, and that didn't work for me. Like, I really just wanted to be able to care about our main character, and I just, maybe I'm heartless, but like I wanted her to die. I didn't care. I didn't like her, and that made this story such a drag for me because I didn't care about her character journey. I didn't care about her moods changing. And I personally like can like a really unlikable character, but I think I can like an annoying unlikable character, not a character like this. I just found her hate so suffocating at the beginning of the story that even when she started to look past it, I was stuck just wanting her to go bye-bye and not wanting to read from her anymore. So I truly think that this book would have benefited from me being dual POV or being from a different character, and that's personal preference. This was pretty police procedural, especially in the beginning, and that's not my favorite type of story to read. I do like a murder mystery though, so I'm like, I don't know, but like some of the cop stuff I don't love, I guess. Maybe I like Nancy Drew. So I'm struggling with this one because like I understand that a lot of it is well done. I do think that there was too many characters in my opinion. Like characters, I am having a problem with characters in these SPFBO books. They seem to be my biggest fault. They're what I'm struggling with because I feel like there were so many characters in this, and probably an issue with like mysteries in general. I didn't remember who people were, and when reveals happened, I was like, wait, we only saw you like 200 pages ago for like 10 pages, so why am I supposed to remember who you were? Or like there's so many names, so many people we met along the way that I just like didn't know who they were, and I'm not a big like detail oriented person, so some of that bothered me. The world building very lush, but for me, I'm not a visualizer, so a lot of it like didn't matter to me, and that's like personal preference. I just honestly felt like this book was going to end so many times, and then there were so many pages left. So I personally did not enjoy this one, but I get that the message can be really well done. I get that it's a story on our main character seeing through her hate through the moments she's put in. I think the mushroom people were well done. They were well thought out. They felt rich. They had their own personalities. They had their own culture. They had their own language, and like how the human hate was portrayed was also really, really well done. Like I think the story itself was well done, but just not something I enjoyed, which really makes giving things ratings very, very hard. But I'll give you my official ratings here. I gave characters a 6. Koji was my favorite character. I feel like he is what gave this a higher score than I wanted to give it, but I hated our main character. I didn't know who any of the side characters were, which also affected the plot at times because I didn't know what people were because there was just so many characters. Then gave the plot an 8. I do think that it was well done. There was issues with me for some pacing a little bit, but for the most part it was well done, just not my personal preference, I guess, and like the lack of characters, you know, it all affected each other, but overall it was good. I did give the writing writing a 9. I actually think this is really, really well written and technically pretty strong. And I gave the world building a 9. I get it. I think that it felt like an urban city with mushroom people, and the mushroom people felt very like real, like understood a lot of things about them. They had like the mushrooms on their heads, and like I really liked all of that was done. I think it's really, really, really well fleshed out and feels real. And then I gave my enjoyment a 5. As I said, I personally didn't enjoy this. I was just reading it to get it done, not my personal taste in stories, so it is scoring a 7 for SPFBO. I get it. This is the thing. So many things in this were well done for me, but my personal enjoyment wasn't there. Hopefully in the next SPFBO video I find a favorite. I'm really, really hoping for one. My SPFBO finalist actually is a favorite of mine. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it, so I'll leave that video on the screen for you to go check out. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you'd like to just leave me an emoji just to say you were here, leave me a mushroom emoji for mushroom blues. Why not? And have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day.